Lo-fi hip-hop seems to have its roots in ambient and down-tempo music, and I've always been a fan of that, and I think Jimmy's on that same page.
Lo-fi plays with gritty, dirty sounds that you would not necessarily find in other genres. But I love that contrast between you have something really beautiful and then you add something and you just like rough it up a little bit. We have a really creative fan base, and I like the idea that our fans can go take a part of the game that they really love and integrate it into their day-to-day.
They won't have to do a lot of processing to be able to just hook onto it.
The way JJ laid out his tracks just made it really accessible for us to kind of transform it into Chillhop. What inspired me to do a lo-fi remix for this is just the soundtrack itself. I'm just a fan of the soundtrack. It's very recognisable.
It's been like friend that you can spend a lot of time with, but I just feel like super comfy to stay with the person.
Sounds don't have to be completely perfect to speak to people.
And so I found this a really interesting challenge where, you know, less was more. I think some of the others did much better than me, and because I was always inspired to write music on top of JJ's work, and then I would go to Rolo, and he would pull stuff out for me, and I found that really useful. That collaboration was really helpful for me because I tend to overcook things and want to pour stuff in, and then he just hacked it away for me, and I thought we made a good team in that respect.
With some of the tracks that I wouldn't have picked for myself for a remix, once I heard what others had done to them, I was like, now it makes sense. Now I understand. And it was so interesting to see that, you know, different sort of aspect and different approaches.
Well, it's so interesting to hear the personality of the person injected, imbued into the track.
I think a good example of that, for me at least, is Anina's remixes, because they were the ones that were most surprising to me, in that they were completely different to the way I would have approached those tracks. But hearing what she did and how she transformed those tracks, it was just a really inspiring experience. I think I took a lot away from that myself.
So I had previously never worked on lo-fi hip-hop tracks before, so it was a first for me, and I think it was actually the first for most of the team. The track Summer Nostalgia, the melodies were really whimsical, and the moment that I heard how playful it was, I knew I wanted to put a music box on there. After this little dialogue of music box and bass kind of like talking to each other, it's almost like a question and an answer. So the music box is kind of like almost like childlike, you know, asking a question, and then you have the bass kind of like giving an answer. Put all of that against a synthetic choir, and again recorded my vocals. It's just that blend of synthetic and organic that makes it really interesting.
So I heard this track, Northern Lights, and I just immediately thought the instrumentation, the melody, it was so strong, and I thought that would really, personally, it just reminded me of summer, even though it's an Arctic track. But when you dig into the structure and dig into the instrumentation, you could then, it just brought me back to those long summer evenings when you're going from late afternoon into night, by that kind of like sunset time. It was just really nice. You're hanging out with your friends or whatever. It's just very nostalgic for me.
My favorite track, it's such a difficult question. Probably going back to that experience of hearing it first, I would say it's Yin's remix of Mongolian Steppe. Yin sends it over, and I remember saying, okay, I'm just going to sit down for some critical listening, you know, get some notes, give some meaningful feedback. And as soon as I put it on, it took about 20 seconds.
Yeah, she nailed it, didn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
Yin's really fond of cats, and it was like Yin's hairball. She just went, and suddenly this There was this thing, and it was a coherent whole, and it needed no changes whatsoever.
She just nailed it, exactly.
Yeah.
Like immediately understood the concept, and so that was a really, really nice surprise.
Actually, the feeling of summer is, I think it might be really different from people here. So back to Taiwan, summer is like really wet, really humid, and like really hot. So usually it's not that enjoyable, but usually you will spend much time in a cold air conditioning room. Or if you go outside, then we'll go somewhere like really beautiful, but like with like cold temperature, like mountains or stuff like that. So that's how I capture summer.
For me, it's Liam's Hero Giraffe. He went away and dug out a fantastic interview with Young and Bazo, who we involved in the original soundtrack.
The two guys at the end started talking about like how like the music made them feel and stuff. What they were saying really kind of reflected on kind of what we were doing now, like a couple of years later. So I thought it would be really beautiful if I could kind of like intertwine them back in.
These guys are the descendants of Ladysmith Black Mambazo, who played on the very famous Graceland album with Paul Simon. And it's so inspiring, it's beautiful, and it really sums up how we feel as a team about, and a company, I guess, about creativity.
That's all that matters. We saw as well that even the people who are working behind this project believe in people for who they are.
I can't pick a favorite. Without sounding, you know, cheesy, I think all of them are just fantastic.
It's really, really, really hard to pick one.
It's a mouth-watering selection of tracks.
To be quite honest, the whole album just works as itself. You listen to it as one piece and it just washes over you. And yeah.
It's an honor and we thank you a lot for it.